and there was a sign that said no objects in the toilet. I thought that's going to be a little hard. When I drop these words that'll make you call the cops, who you there there? You better move, don't ever compare me to the rest of the world. Get sliced and diced. The competition's paying the price. I like the way you put it, no diggity. Bag it up. Like the way you put it, no diggity. Bag it up. I like the way you work it, no diggity. Bag it up. Like the way you work it, no diggity. Keep it up. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. Louder. Hey yo, hey yo, hey yo, hey yo. 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 She makes you go and slowly tears you apart. Now I know she got a certain ability to take everything she sees.
Yeah, I remember the night. It was March 16th, 1993. And we were playing in Philadelphia, a big show, maybe 112,000 people. And we were doing our encore. It was a great song, Eddie Bruce Jr., classic tune. And people were getting a little bit excited, and I guess even we were getting a little bit excited. But I looked out to the crowd, and there's this one fella, he's got a strange look on his face, and looked a little bit uncomfortable. And then everyone around him sort of looked, they started waving their hands under their noses, and the band started to feel a bit uncomfortable, and that was the first night where somebody in the crowd actually defecated inside their pants. So after that night, it became a thing where after there was about 7 people that went to the authorities and said that they had some problem with their pants, and there was a certain number of them who had all soiled their pants, which apparently broke some sort of law or licensing law. So we had a lawsuit on our hands where about 30 or 40 people at one concert all soiled their pants. They all shat their pants, and there wasn't much we could do about it. I mean, we couldn't bring the music back, so we tried to maybe play not quite so hard and see maybe if we did one less encore, how it affected the shit in the pants. And one time we only did one encore and we had maybe 20 people shit their pants, but also it wasn't the same show.
So is that what led to the compulsory diapers, where every guest had to wear diapers when they came in?
Of course, the infamous compulsory diaper night, which was brought in later on, where people came in through the door and we gave everyone a diaper, an adult diaper, so that they could take care of themselves if they got too excited by watching the show. And everyone was out there in the crowd. You could see their pants were very bunched up around the waist area. It was uncomfortable, but then again, so was having your pants full of steaming shit. So
it's probably a healthy safety thing more than anything. It's health and safety, because it can't be clean. I'm sure if something got in your mouth, someone else's crap, chances are it's going to be messy, isn't it? Really, you're going to feel sick.
I mean, it's not even live stuff though. I was there myself. I wasn't there myself. I was watching it on TV, and via a satellite link up, and I soiled my pants that night.
But you think about that, I think the government had to get involved, because you can't have lots of people in an environment with huge piles of shit everywhere. It's gonna get messy, and the government's gonna step in, aren't they? Really, you're gonna get rats and cockroaches. It's not good, and flies.
We did one show in Royal Albert Hall where they actually went to the expense of taking out all the seats, and they replaced them all with toilet bowls, brand new toilet bowls. It was nothing disgusting, but there was still some concern about sanitation issues. We played 2 shows in a row, and apparently the bowls weren't cleaned, which made a lot of people angry. But they were 2 shows very close together, and we didn't have time to clean the bowls. And I mean, I'm not going to clean them, so there wasn't much we could do.
I remember when the problem first arose that the idea was to bring their own potty, their own portaloo, but it just got too dirty because you had no way to clean the actual potty between the encores and the next show. You know, it was just getting too dirty. All the sinks were overflowing with crap. It's terrible, terrible.
Personally, I would rather have the potties inside the hall than have it inside your pants. But I think every person has a different preference. And there had been no recorded case of this before. We're going to see one particular artist perform a concert. Just made you shit your trousers pretty much immediately or within 45 minutes of the show.
Also, the problem with potties is that basically you've got to be naked from the waist below. So you've got like 5- and 6-year-old girls maybe running around, or teenage girls, and you've got like guys just with their willies just hanging out and lumps of shit falling out their ass at random. You know, it's probably quite wrong actually.
Certainly not ideal by the sound of it.
No, I mean
There probably would have been a lot of sex going on if it wasn't for that everyone's bottom half of their bodies was covered in shit, which was disgusting. So I don't think anybody really wanted to have sex after that.
Well,
especially not 5-year-old girls.
And
No.
only fetishists by the sound of it.
It certainly cut down on the groupie situation for the band and myself.
Yeah.
But what can you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you can hand out to nappies like you did at the end, you know, the diapers, but that leads to the 12-foot tall pile of soiled nappies and flies and that.
That was another problem, is one of the promoters claimed that we weren't disposing of the adult diapers properly, so backstage there was a huge giant pile of diapers, and of course the next day there was a concert by the Wiggles, so there was all these little tiny kids coming with their families, and nobody liked that, all the huge pile of dirty diapers in the back.
Oh.
And I took the blame for that largely.
Also, speaking as a fan, I remember I sat at the front a lot of times. The more you shit, the higher you get in your chair because the crap is building up in your nappy. So the people behind you start complaining that they can't see, so they can only hear the performance, you know? So it's quite bad for the people at the back.
So when the visuals were cut out for them, did they still shit their pants, or was it?
It's about shitting your pants faster than, faster than the person in front of you.
So it's kind of a race, isn't
You
it?
can see.
It all depends on you how much you appreciate Eddie Bruce himself.
They make the sound more loud at the back, and they're more likely to shit their pants quicker, so you can get higher.
Or you can kind of stagger the pants soil action.
Like a cinema, almost.
Yeah, you can stagger the pants soiling. Yeah.
People at concerts used to shout out their favorite songs just because they wanted to hear it, but they started to shout out for a song just because they needed their shit pile to raise up. The person in front of them.
Or you could give all the rows a blindfold except the back row, so they get like a head start on shitting their pants, you know. So basically, and then everyone whips up the blindfold after each chorus till eventually it's staggered to like a cinema effect. So people at the back are really tall while shitting their nappies, you know.
It's amazing the logistics you have to deal with in this situation. No band had ever dealt with this problem before. I mean, there'd been a number of things. There had been stampedes at concerts, but
Diuretic stampedes?
but never a diuretic stampede of this magnitude, I don't think.
And the fumes, you had to have huge big turbines, didn't you, to suck out the shitty smells. It was bad. I thought at one point there was vomit as well, wasn't it? Because there was so much shit in the air.
Well, you're bound to vomit if there's that much shit around. It's impossible not to.
So we had to try. I remember at one place we had troughs. So after you shit. After you'd shit your pants, you were sitting into a bucket, and it was like a constant stream both sides. You know, by the end you were dehydrated. There was nothing left in your body. You know, you were like a shell.
Sounds like an excrement cycle.
We were getting dragged out.
That's why Eddie Bruce's second song was called The Excrement Cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When I released The Excrement Cycle, we all thought it was going to be a huge hit. It had a great rhythm to it. In your pants, in your pants, but it didn't take off. It flopped, topped up at...
It's a bit too close to the bone, I think, by the sound of it.
A lot of people said it made them feel uncomfortable, literally. Sometimes.
Also, there was the drug issue because they were giving people tablets to try and prevent you shitting, and people weren't going to the toilet at all, and it it was troublesome for your bowels. You wanted to go and you were sitting there and you're uncomfortable, but there's nothing you could do. So there's a lot of problems with drugs because people are getting addicted to these
I'm
drugs.
sure I remember reading in the paper that the only time people could actually go to the toilet again after taking these drugs was to re-go to the Eddie Bruce Jr. concert. So they had to travel all over America,
Yeah, or you get a
just trying to
CD,
soil their pants.
try and force it through, you know, a free CD maybe.
Yeah, the
We took a
government-
lot of bad press for that. It wasn't all bad. Sometimes the Eddie Bruce Jr. CDs were used for good. They would take the CDs and they would play it for somebody that was having problem with their stomach, and it would help them to go better, a little bit like the milk of magnesium or something.
Yeah,
like that.
exactly, yeah. But then again though, I remember one day, it works both ways. I had my CD player on, I was having a good time, and like an old couple walked past and they overheard the song, just three or four seconds, and there was a mess trailing behind them. And I felt bad. It was my fault indirectly, but it was more about the CD than me.
Did they know what had happened, or?
I think they maybe just had weak bowels, and they heard a couple of lines, and it was too much for their old frail bladders and bowels. Sorry.
So never play even a snatch of an Eddie Bruce Jr. song at an old people's home, for instance.
It got so bad for me that sometimes I would be just talking in a bank or something like that. Someone would hear my voice and it would trigger a memory, and they would soil themselves. They would look around. They didn't realize what it was. Of course, I'd try and get out of sight because I don't want to be held responsible for something like that. It's embarrassing for everybody.
Yeah, swimming baths are the worst though. You just swim along and just see a log going past your face because you know that Eddie Bruce Jr. song has come across the tannoy. It was quite scary at times. I mean, it's a good place in some respects because it's full of chlorine and kills the disease, but I don't want some of the shit flying in my face when I'm swimming along.
Plus, you get those people who come along with a net and usually scoop it out anyway.
Yeah, but that's all right, well, but if there's one song and there's lots of people in the pool, you're going to have big logs everywhere you look, aren't you, really? Especially if you're swimming along with that as well.
And that's what led to the banning of Eddie Bruce Jr. songs in public areas such as football fields and swimming pools.
It's bad for me because I like Eddie Bruce Jr. a lot, I still do, but I still can only listen to it in short bursts.
It's almost a little bit unfair. I mean, certainly that was never our intention, was to cause anybody to have any problem.
You're getting penalised for your talent, really.
Penalized for talent, and I mean, scientists did a study on it, and apparently there was some sort of connection with the sound of my voice and stomping my foot in a cowboy boot on the wooden stage, which connected with the right cerebrum of the listener and sent a signal through the central nervous system, which then seized up the sphincter
And then triggered the bowels.
would trigger the bowels, exactly.
Yeah, that's too much. I think it's more like a cramp or a spasm, and you can't stop yourself. You're straight, you're rigid, and out comes the shite. You know, it's quite intense. Really.
Yeah, I saw it once. It was like a kind of brown Mexican wave.
Yeah, it was.
At one of the concerts, there was just like it looked like a Mexican wave, but it was actually torrents of excrement.
Yeah, big piles of shit, man.
Just going nuts, and there was people slipping over and falling face first. Some people went blind, if I remember rightly, because they'd actually got some shit in their eyes and stuff like that.
God, it was messy, man. They're all messy. Every concert I've been to has been messy, but it's worth it in the long run.
But they keep coming back for more.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of those concert halls never would have been renovated to accommodate that kind of problem if it wasn't for...
Or waterproofed.
Or waterproof for that matter, or covered in poly wrap on the walls and floors, which is good for anybody. I mean, a number of problems.
And then they adopted the tactics that the British used in the foot and mouth disease. They had buckets, didn't they, where you had to put your feet in the bucket, like Domestos, yeah. And you had to sterilise everything when you come in and out.
Yeah, man.
Fake, they were like supplying shoes at one version,
The whole thing
one
was
concert.
very clean. It was all very sanitary. That's why I didn't really understand what the big deal was at the time. We had a lot of negative media coverage that came from the whole incident.
But it was proved that it was a party brain at the back, because there was one guy, like he had a bit of his head removed because he got shot at in an accident. And like, he didn't shit his pants at all. So obviously the part of the brain that received the message to shit your pants, it wasn't accepting the information, you know?
Or he just wasn't a music lover. He didn't like live music.
But then again, though, I've known people who didn't like Eddie Bruce really that much and they still shit their pants. It was so impressive. You know, they just got them. They couldn't say,
Yeah, it was all one big joke at the beginning when he was throwing diapers out for a laugh.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
actually, I think it's gone a bit too far for that now.
But it's about the talent, though. You gotta remember, the reason why people shit their pants, essentially, ignoring the retards and the weird people, it's because they're so impressed by the music that they can't control their bowels. It's too much, basically. That's why I'm an Eddie Bruce fan. I'm an Eddie Bruce fan.
So when they hand out your diaper, you get it on quickly before the performance begins.
I'll get the free ones. They're cheap. I get the proper branded Eddie Bruce ones you can buy online. You know, like they're £5 each, but
Rubber they're made of?
like rubber lined. Got like little proper seal. They've got like a proper system where you can like remove like a pod of shit, put it in a bag, and then just stick another pod in. You're out like a shot. You don't miss any of the songs.
So you put this on as quick as possible. Presumably, if you don't get it on before the performance, it's all over. Pants-wise.
I've got a system where I've got like earplugs, and I put them on in between changes. Otherwise, it'd be messy. So I'm yeah.
That's good. It's good.
It's pretty good.
It's a good system.
It took me a while to perfect. It took me like 3 or 4 gigs before I realised you have to be clever, otherwise it's messy all the way, you know.
And then you started cashing in, of course, Eddie Bruce, on the pants themselves, making them brown with your signature on.
Once the special pants came out, definitely people started to say we were taking advantage of the situation, which wasn't true at all.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone markets.
But it was your market, you created it, you're allowed to cash in on it.
I should be able to cash in on it, and
because Nike tried to get in on it, didn't they, and try to release Eddie Bruce like
Nike pants. I remember
Nike shit pants, but they weren't as good because they were trying to cash in on a market that they had no control over.
Plus, it completely.
That wasn't their market. Nike knows about basketball and football and sports, but when it comes to rock and roll, just pure, unadulterated, high-octane rock and roll.
Plus, it purely negated the torsion bar as well, which was always full of shit.
Yeah.
So you know, if you wear a torsion bar, Nike and other inventions full of shit all the time. So they had to retract from the market.
I remember Springsteen, he's a good friend of yours, I know, but he got jealous one moment because he had a few people that shit their pants, but it wasn't worth giving out trousers or diapers. It was never that kind of magnitude. It was only about 2 or 3 people. Yeah. But he tried to cash in on the whole Eddie Bruce Jr. thing.
He was trying to work out how to get people's noses to run, wasn't he? While the music was playing.
He didn't need the sick balls because there wasn't enough shit in the air, basically. Yeah.
At that point, the shit balls for him were more just for appearance, to show that his show compared in impressiveness to my show, but he didn't even need them. He could have had 3 or 4 shit balls off to the side, and it really would have been sufficient.
Yeah. He did come on once, put down like a mobile toilet and sit on that, but that didn't seem to provoke a response as much as he thought it would.
It was a statement, but it was a weak statement, which brings up an interesting point. Is when you look back at rock and roll history and you think about what were the greatest bands of all time, and you say, how do you compare that? Is it record sales? Is it who's done the most tours? Who's had the biggest audiences? But I mean, one thing nobody ever talks about is how many people have you made shit your pants?
Yes.
And Eddie Bruce Jr. Band, bar none, has made more people shit their pants all over the world.
Oh yeah, well undoubtedly top the soiled underwear list.
Yeah, if you could measure the weight in kilograms of how much shite came out of people's asses, it's probably the weight of Greenland, I would imagine.
And that includes diarrhea as well. There was thousands of countless litres of diarrhea. Diarrhea.
If you give people some sort of horrible food before they go in there, then chances are you're going to get more diarrhea than you are solid poo. So it depends on what kind of concert you want. If it's going to be like a bloodbath of shit or more like a steaming pile of poo-poo, you know?
It really affected the concession stands. In fact, we sold a lot more vegetarian food and health foods because it seemed to come out a little bit cleaner than if you were to have only hot dogs and beer. So I think it was actually good for people's digestive systems.
Yeah.
It's also, if you had worms, sometimes they just clear them straight out. I remember seeing a guy once, he didn't look well, God, poor guy. But I remember seeing the bottom of his leg and there was just tapeworms leaking out of his leg, crawling between his toes. And there was little girls walking past and they were like, what's that? But you could tell the guy was happy that he'd expelled this evil, devious worm, you know?
That was pretty much when Eddie Bruce ran into problems, wasn't it? Because it was getting ridiculous at that point.
Yeah. At that point, even I didn't want to tour anymore, and I talked about just staying in the studio, maybe just staying inside and writing songs for a while, and not performing at all. But, of course, then the problem started with people playing the CDs, hearing the songs on the radio. People were shitting in their cars, in their houses, at work. People were using the songs as practical jokes. Poor kids that were being bullied at school, someone would pop up behind them, put a couple of earphones in their ear, make them shit their pants right in the middle of the hallway. And if you were already having problems at school, that certainly didn't help.
Not good, not good. Also, if you've got like tender bowels and maybe having shit is painful, then the last thing you want to hear is an Eddie Bruce song. I mean, it's just, I heard one guy, he had fell onto a fence post and split his asshole wide open, and then he was just recovering. He had just a couple of stitches, just holding the finger together. And you heard an Eddie Bruce song, and it just tore wide open.
That's what powered Eddie Bruce's third single, which was Shit a Brick Sideways, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Shit a Brick Sideways was a great song. Some people say that I just capitalized on obviously the media coverage that the Soiled Trousers were getting at the time, but that song would have been a hit even if that wasn't happening. I mean, even if no one shit their pants to begin with, or maybe only 20 or 30 people or 100.
Yeah, that's true.
What about your fourth single, Torrents of Shite?
Torrents of Shite was not as strong a song. I've apologized for that song in the past, and of course, hindsight is 20/20. But at the time, we didn't know that was not the right song for the moment.
Also,
especially after some people had really become seriously ill because they couldn't keep any food in their stomach.
At the time, I'm still a big fan, but he was accused of being fairly two-dimensional because most of his songs involve piles of shit. Which, it's like the chicken and the egg. What came first? You know, people shitting their pants or singing about shit. I think that, you know, it's pretty much neck and neck. And
No, I think you start off with a normal career, and then people started defecating all over the place. He just said to cash in.
yeah, well, I know to say he was cashing in suggests that he's a sellout. I don't know if it's true. I'm not sure.
And on the other hand, there's been a lot of bands in history. I mean, the Rolling Stones sang about sex all the time. The Beach Boys sang about cars and surfing. And it, you know, some people say it's repetitive, it's redundant to have so many songs about shitting your pants. But then again, how many shit your pants songs were around before I started singing those songs? You could count them on one hand. I'm sure.
Most of them are kids' songs as well, I think.
Well, I mean, I don't care if it's a kid's song or it's an adult song, it's a rock and roll song. If it's got a catchy tune and they shit your pants, I'll get it, I'll buy it, I'll be there in a shop.
Well, any song that can actually force a bodily function has got to be pretty good.
I remember once hearing, like, I think it was just a theme to an Eddie Bruce song, and a small pebble rolled down my leg, and I was, what the hell is this shit, literally? And I thought, that's got to be Eddie Bruce, and I realised afterwards it was just an anthem almost, and just pebbles were rolling out my trouser leg freely.
Was that the one he titled Lengthy Log?
Lengthy Log? I think it was actually, but I can't remember. It might have been like sustained shit sample.
Stool Pigeon? What happened to that album? Did it sell well?
Stool Pigeon was not our best-selling album, but it was a strong album. And of course, there were two fairly important singles.
I remember you were laughing, but it was Stinky Shit Stain was one. That was a good one.
Excrement Central.
Excrement Central was released on an album later on. It was officially it was part of that album, but it was only released and heard on the later album. Shitty Stink.
A lot of people didn't notice it, but I thought Nuggets of Corn was one of the best.
Yes,
songs on that
in
album.
Japan that one went down well. I don't know why, but everyone loved it.
Nuggets of Corn is still the 5th fastest-selling single ever on the market.
Yeah. Chocolate Starfish was a great song though. That was the best one on the album. I think it was awesome.
Chocolate Starfish was going to be a huge hit. I maybe could be faulted for making the mistake of performing it at the Princess Di's funeral right after Elton John sang English Rose.
Oh yeah, Canada the Wind. Yeah, I remember it well. Yeah, but I mean, I will have to just forget that one incident. It was an embarrassment.
Yeah, that
shit in her pants and all that. It's not worth listening to. It's not worth thinking of, to be honest. I don't think I'd ever seen the Queen shit. I would never see someone like the Queen shit.
I never thought I'd see the Princess Di memorial thing that they invented actually flowing brown instead of.
Some people say it ruined the funeral to have so many people shitting their pants at a funeral, which is supposed to be a somber event, but
I think that's the way Princess Diana would have wanted it.
Yeah, I heard that she liked that, Eddie Bruce. She was a big fan, actually. I think she was a big fan of Eddie Bruce, and I've heard her many times just shit her skirt, if that's a word. I mean, or just shit her underwear. Happily at home with Eddie Bruce. She never got a chance to see you live, though, did she? Never saw you live.
She never saw me on stage, but she saw me backstage.
Oh, I see, yeah. I see.
Shit her pants.
Yeah, shit her pants, freaky. Yeah.
Alright, Julie, your turn. You gotta say some stuff in Chinese.
Well, it's not that candle. That candle's horrible.
It smells of car exhaust.
Car fumes. We've got to put it out.
Wait till it starts smelling, you'll notice.
It stinks really bad. It makes us feel sick. To be honest.
I'm worried that this footage is not going to be on tape. I'm really worried that it's not going to be recorded.
It might not be. So it's really bad.